All right, when Congress voted last year to redefine marriage, it not only disregarded the population of Americans who maintain that marriage should be between a man and a woman, but it also directly exposed them to attacks on their liberties. As a result, we've seen an increase on what amounts to religious persecution in this country. We saw it earlier this year when Jacob Kersey was forced out of his job as a police officer for a Facebook post on his personal Facebook account about biblical marriage. More recently, Cross Point Church in Maine, which operates a Bangor Christian schools, has been excluded from Maine's school choice program for not rejecting the truth that marriage is between a man and a woman. These situations have a lot of people asking, really, is it time for a First Amendment Defense Act? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Quena Gonzalez. He's the Senior Director of Government Affairs at the Family Research Council. Quena, welcome back to Washington Watch.
It's great to be with you, Jody.
All right, well, we've got our viewers and listeners of Washington Watch know the story of Jacob Kersey. We covered that well. And certainly it exemplifies everything we said was going to happen with the passage of the so-called Respect for Marriage Act, which was really the Disrespect Act. But what are some other examples that are happening across the country where discrimination is taking place because of people's religious views?
Yeah, Jody, people's views on marriage, that marriage is or should be between a man and a woman, are very much under attack, and not just culturally, not just at work and at school, but the government is taking action against people. You cited an excellent example of Bangor Christian School in Maine. They had sued, Christian schools in Maine had sued to be part of the school choice program because they had been excluded in Maine for many years on the basis of the fact that they're overly religious. And they lost at the Supreme Court. Those who would exclude Christian schools lost at the Supreme Court. So what did Maine do? They turned around and said, okay, Christian schools now can be eligible, but they can't have a strong stance on marriage. They can't believe in one man, one woman marriage. And so the Bangor Christian School rightly is suing again with our good friends at First Liberty for the right to participate, to come to the table and be a part of a school choice program that benefits private schools, public schools, charter schools. They all should be equal. But in Maine, the state of Maine has said that your belief in marriage, that marriage is or should be between a man and a woman, disqualifies you from participating in this program. It's not just one Christian school in Maine or one state. It's all over the country. You have the case of Jack Phillips, which is being argued by ADF. Jack Phillips is the cake baker from Colorado who is now on his third effort to protect his right to express himself through his art of making custom cakes without being forced to make cakes for same-sex weddings or gender identity. I don't know where this ends, but I can tell you, Jody, that it's not just these cases. There are others that I could cite, but it's really the tens or hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of Americans who've been silenced on this issue because they're afraid to speak up, because they know that the heavy hand of government, often their local or state government, will come after them because of their belief that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. These things are popping up almost like a rash all across the country. We're seeing more and more cases like this. And so many are beginning to say it's time that we support, if we will, or undergird or underscore, however you want to say it, the First Amendment. And Congressman Chip Roy is leading the way on this. He recently led a letter to some of his fellow Republicans requesting that during the House Appropriations process that's coming up, that language be added to prohibit the federal government from these type of discriminatory actions like you're describing based on one's views, a biblical view of marriage and so forth. I think last count, 23 Republicans that have signed on to that letter. First of all, tell us a little bit about what Congressman Roy is doing. And secondly, I really want to address this. I would think there'd be a lot more than 23 that would sign on to this. Why do you think we only have 23 at this point?
Well, that's a very good question, and a question that we have been asking on Capitol Hill. My team and I are up there every week talking to members, talking to staff, and educating them. You know, as you said before the break, Congress rushed to redefine marriage at the end of last year before Democrats lost the majority in the House. And unfortunately, they were not alone. There were Republicans who voted with them to redefine marriage to include same-sex marriage, ignoring the real problems that come about when the government takes that stance on marriage. It's been used, and we warned it would be, and it is being used by activists using the levers of government to go after people. We have a lot of educating of members to do on this, and I'm happy to say that at least one of the signatories of that letter that Chip Roy spearheaded is someone who voted for same-sex marriage last year, but apparently sees the light now and sees that at least, no matter what your views on marriage might be or what their views on marriage might be, people who disagree should not be persecuted, as the Supreme Court said the first time Jack Phillips went up to the Supreme Court. And so that's exactly what this language would do. It would say that any of the money that is set aside by Congress for spending could not be used to persecute people of faith or people of no faith who believe that marriage is or should be between a man and a woman. We need people's help educating members of Congress. They can go to tonyperkins.com and click the link, or they can go to frcaction.org/marriage.
Quena Gonzalez, thank you so much for joining us on Washington Watch. We appreciate your insight tremendously.